The Russian VDV, Vozdушно-Desantnie Vojska, the airborne forces, were once considered the sharpest edge of the Russian military machine. Hand-picked volunteers, months of rigorous training, blue berets and striped telnyashka shirts worn with the arrogance of men who believed they were Russia's finest warriors. In the Soviet era, they were feared. In the post-Soviet decades, they were celebrated in propaganda as the elite of the elite, the force that would be first to fight, first to jump, first to win. 4 years into the invasion of Ukraine, the VDV is a shadow of that legend. The catastrophic airborne assault on Hostomel Airport in the first days of the war, where VDV paratroopers were slaughtered by Ukrainian defenders, was the beginning of a decline that has only accelerated. Since then, VDV units have been used not as elite airborne forces, but as emergency reinforcements, rushed by road to plug holes in a collapsing front line, fighting as conventional infantry in roles they were never designed for, and suffering casualties at rates that have gutted their experienced cadres and replaced them with conscripts and mobilized men who wear the blue beret but lack the training it once represented. Just days ago, the latest chapter of the VDV's destruction was written on a road in eastern Ukraine, when a battalion of 350 airborne soldiers with 25 armored vehicles was caught on the march by a Ukrainian ambush that destroyed 60% of the force in under 2 hours. This is the story of how Ukrainian intelligence, firepower, and tactical brilliance turned Russia's elite reserve into burning wreckage on a spring road, and why this single engagement may represent a turning point in Russia's ability to respond to Ukrainian operations on the Eastern Front. The engagement began with a Ukrainian offensive. Several days earlier, Ukrainian forces had launched a coordinated assault on Russian positions in a sector of the Eastern Front that had been contested for months. The Ukrainian attack was deliberate and well prepared, multiple assault groups hitting Russian trench lines simultaneously, supported by drones, artillery, and electronic warfare that degraded Russian communications and command. The Russian defenders, an understrength motorized rifle regiment, were pushed back. Positions that had held for weeks began to fall. The Russian regimental commander sent urgent requests to his division for reinforcements. The division's response was to activate its operational reserve, a VDV airborne battalion that had been held approximately 35 kilometers behind the front line, specifically for this purpose. A rapid reaction force that could be deployed to any threatened sector within hours. The battalion was ordered to move immediately to the collapsing sector and counterattack the Ukrainian forces that were pushing through the Russian lines. Ukrainian signals intelligence intercepted the deployment order within minutes of its transmission. The intercept provided critical details: the battalion's size, approximately 350 personnel, its equipment, 25 armored vehicles, including BMD-4RM airborne infantry fighting vehicles, BTR-MDM armored personnel carriers, and support trucks. Its route, a specific road that ran southwest from the reserve staging area to the threatened sector. And its timeline, the battalion would begin movement within the hour. The Ukrainian brigade commander responsible for the offensive faced a choice. He could reinforce his defensive positions in the sector and prepare to receive the VDV counterattack, a conventional response that would likely result in a contested battle with uncertain outcome. Or he could do something far more aggressive, intercept and destroy the VDV battalion on the road before it reached the front, while it was stretched out in a column and unable to deploy into combat formation. He chose the ambush. Stay with this. The decision to ambush an elite VDV battalion on the march, rather than fight it in prepared positions, required Ukrainian forces to move fast, coordinate multiple weapon systems across a wide area, and execute a complex operation in under 2 hours. What followed was a masterclass in combined arms interdiction. The ambush site was selected within 30 minutes of the intercept. Ukrainian intelligence officers, working with artillery and drone coordinators, identified a 12-kilometer stretch of road that the VDV column would have to traverse. A section that passed through open terrain with fields on both sides, now soft and waterlogged from the early spring thaw. The road was the only viable route. The parallel roads were either too far from the axis of march or too damaged to support armored vehicles. The VDV battalion would have to use this road, and on this road they would be vulnerable, Ukrainian forces positioned themselves with speed that reflected years of practice in rapid redeployment. 2 HIMARS batteries were given pre-calculated firing coordinates for the head and tail of the expected column formation, kill box coordinates that would trap the convoy between 2 impact zones. Artillery batteries, 155 mm and 152 mm, registered on the center section of the road, where the bulk of the column would be when the HIMARS strikes sealed both ends. FPV drone teams moved to launch positions on elevated ground flanking the road, their aircraft loaded with anti-armor warheads. Sniper teams were dispatched to concealed positions along the road with orders to target officers, radio operators, and vehicle commanders. The VDV battalion departed its staging area at approximately 0400 hours, moving in darkness at speed with the urgency of a force responding to a genuine crisis. The column stretched along approximately 3 kilometers of road. BMD-4M infantry fighting vehicles in the lead, BTR MDMs carrying infantry in the center, support trucks and command vehicles in the rear. Approximately 350 soldiers, the last significant operational reserve available to the Russian division in this sector. Ukrainian surveillance drones tracked the column from the moment it departed. The operators reported vehicle count, spacing, speed, and formation to the brigade command post, where the ambush coordinator updated the firing calculations in real time. The column was moving at approximately 40 kilometers per hour, fast for a road march, reflecting the urgency of the deployment order. At 0435, the head of the column entered the kill zone. The 12-kilometer stretch of open road with muddy fields on both sides. The coordinator began the countdown. At 0442, when the column was fully within the engagement area, lead vehicles 7 kilometers into the zone, rear vehicles just entering, the brigade commander gave the order. The HIMARS strikes arrived first. 2 rockets hit the road at the front of the column, detonating among the lead BMD-4M vehicles. The explosions destroyed 2 BMDs instantly and cratered the road, creating an impassable obstacle. Simultaneously, 2 rockets struck the rear of the column, hitting a support truck and a BTR MDM and blocking the road behind the formation. The column was sealed, 3 kilometers of vehicles trapped between 2 impact zones on a road with no exit. What is the single worst tactical position for an elite military unit? A. Surrounded in open terrain. B. Trapped on a road without maneuver space. C. Under fire from weapons they cannot see. D. All 3 simultaneously. Tell us in the comments. The artillery barrage began within 30 seconds of the HIMARS impacts, shells raining down on the center of the column where the majority of the vehicles and personnel were concentrated. The pre-registered fire zones proved devastatingly effective, each salvo covering a 200-meter section of road, each section overlapping with the next, creating a continuous curtain of explosions that walked along the length of the trapped column. The VDV soldiers reacted with more speed and discipline than the average Russian unit. These were still better trained troops, even if their quality had degraded since the war's early years. Vehicle crews immediately attempted to deploy into combat formation, turrets traversing toward the flanks, infantry dismounting from BMDs and BTRs and seeking what cover the shallow roadside ditches offered. Officers shouted orders over the explosions, attempting to organize a coherent response, but there was nowhere to go. The fields on both sides of the road were waterlogged from the spring thaw, the same mud that had been trapping Russian vehicles across the Eastern Front for weeks. A BMD-4M that attempted to leave the road and flank the artillery positions sank to its hull within 50 meters. A BTR MDM that drove into the field on the opposite side made it slightly further before losing traction and slewing sideways, presenting its thin side armor to the Ukrainian FPV drones that were already diving toward the column. The FPV drone assault was systematic and relentless. Operators had been assigned specific sections of the column, each team responsible for a 200-meter zone, each team working independently but in coordination, ensuring that no section of the kill zone was left unattended. The drones targeted armored vehicles first, hitting BMDs and BTRs with anti-armor warheads that penetrated the relatively thin aluminum armor of the airborne fighting vehicles. The BMD-4M, designed to be airdroppable, sacrifices armor protection for weight savings. a design philosophy that makes it effective for airborne operations but fatally vulnerable to the precision anti-armor munitions that Ukrainian FPV drones carry. One by one, the VDV's armored vehicles were destroyed. A BMD-4M hit through the turret top, the warhead igniting the ammunition stored below, the vehicle erupting in a fireball that killed the entire crew and the infantry squad riding inside. A BTR-MDM struck in the engine compartment, the vehicle grinding to a halt, smoke pouring from the rear, the infantry inside scrambling out through the side hatches into a road already swept by Ukrainian machine gun fire from distant positions. A command vehicle, identifiable by its antenna array, targeted by 3 successive drones until it was confirmed destroyed. The officers inside killed, along with the communications equipment that might have coordinated a response. Ukrainian sniper teams engaged targets of opportunity throughout the engagement. Their primary targets were officers and radio operators. Every Russian officer killed reduced the VDV's ability to organize. Every radio operator killed reduced their ability to communicate. And in the chaos of the kill zone, smoke, explosions, burning vehicles, soldiers running, identifying and eliminating leadership targets created cascading confusion that accelerated the battalion's collapse. The VDV soldiers who survived the initial strikes fought with the desperation of men who knew they were trapped. Some established firing positions in roadside ditches and returned fire toward the FPV drone launch points. But the drones launched from behind terrain features that concealed the operators, and the soldiers were firing at targets they could not see. Others attempted to organize a breakout on foot, groups of 10 to 15 men moving together through the muddy fields, heading east toward Russian lines. Ukrainian surveillance drones tracked these groups and directed artillery or FPV strikes onto them as they struggled through the heavy clay. Some VDV soldiers stripped off their heavy equipment, body armor, helmets, ammunition pouches, to move faster through the mud. They ran in their uniforms and boots, abandoning the gear that marked them as elite soldiers, reverting to the most basic survival instinct: move, escape, survive. Some made it, many did not. How many VDV airborne units has Russia lost since the full-scale invasion? A. 5 to 8 battalions. B. 8 to 12 battalions. C. The VDV has effectively been destroyed as an elite force. The answer is closer to C than Russia would ever admit. Drop your reaction below. The engagement lasted approximately 2 hours, from the first HIMARS impact at 0442 to the last significant organized resistance at approximately 0640. By the time Ukrainian forces confirmed the engagement was over, the 12-kilometer stretch of road was a corridor of destruction. Confirmed losses: armored vehicles destroyed, 18 of 25, including 9 BMD-4M infantry fighting vehicles, 5 BTR-MDM armored personnel carriers, and 4 support and command vehicles. 7 vehicles survived, most of them at the extreme rear of the column, which managed to reverse out of the kill zone before the artillery curtain fully closed. Personnel casualties: approximately 200 to 210 killed or seriously wounded out of 350. An additional 20 to 30 captured by Ukrainian forces during subsequent sweeps of the area. Total casualties: approximately 230 to 240, a loss rate of approximately 65%. Among the dead were the battalion commander, a lieutenant colonel, his operations officer, his intelligence officer, and an estimated 12 to 15 additional officers and senior NCOs. The battalion's command structure was effectively decapitated. Is the destruction of an elite VDV battalion more strategically significant than destroying a regular motorized rifle unit of the same size? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Now the economics, and these numbers reflect the premium cost of elite forces. 9 BMD-4M infantry fighting vehicles destroyed. Each BMD-4M costs approximately $1.5 to $2.5 million, significantly more than a standard BMP due to its specialized airborne design and production in limited quantities. Total BMD losses: $13 to $22 million. 5 BTR-MDM armored personnel carriers destroyed, at approximately $1 to $1.5 million each. Total $5 to $7.5 million. 4 support and command vehicles destroyed, approximately $1 to $2 million combined. Personnel losses: 200 to 210 killed or wounded. VDV soldiers represent a significantly higher training investment than standard Russian infantry. VDV training programs are longer, more intensive, and more expensive. Each VDV soldier represents an estimated $50,000 to $80,000 in training and equipping costs, roughly double the investment in a standard motorized rifle soldier. Total personnel loss value, $12 to $18 million. The officers killed, particularly the battalion commander and senior staff, represent years of specialized training, command experience, and institutional knowledge that cannot be replaced by field promotions or accelerated officer courses. Estimated replacement cost for the battalion's officer cadre, $3 to $5 million. The operational cost of the failed reinforcement. The critical sector that the VDV battalion was supposed to save received no reinforcement. Ukrainian forces continued their offensive, capturing additional positions and inflicting further casualties on the unsupported Russian defenders. The cascading operational losses, positions lost, soldiers killed, equipment destroyed because the reserve never arrived, are estimated at an additional $10 to $15 million. Total estimated Russian losses: armored vehicles destroyed, $19 to $31 million. Personnel killed and wounded, $12 to $18 million. Officer cadre eliminated, $3 to $5 million. Operational losses from failed reinforcement, $10 to $15 million. Equipment abandoned on the road, weapons, communications gear, personal equipment, approximately $1 to $2 million. Total, $45 to $71 million. Ukrainian expenditure: HIMARS rockets, artillery ammunition, FPV drones, sniper operations, and surveillance. Estimated $4 to $6 million. $6 million to destroy $71 million in Russian elite military assets. A cost-exchange ratio of approximately 12 to 1. But the strategic ratio is far worse for Russia, because the VDV soldiers killed on that road were not replaceable in kind. Russia cannot produce elite airborne troops on a factory line. The training takes years, the experience takes combat rotations, and the institutional culture, the esprit de corps, the unit cohesion, the leadership traditions, dies with every battalion that is destroyed. Each VDV unit eliminated represents a permanent reduction in Russia's strategic reserve capability. There are no more VDV soldiers in storage. There are no more VDV battalions waiting in reserve. What Russia has is what it has, and after this ambush, it has significantly less. If facts like these prove that Ukraine is systematically destroying Russia's ability to respond to crises on the front, type truth in the comments. What should Ukraine target next? More reserves or more command posts? Tell us below. 3 questions before you go. First, if Ukraine can intercept and destroy a VDV airborne battalion, Russia's elite operational reserve, on the road in under 2 hours, does Russia effectively have no reliable reserve capability on the Eastern Front? And what does that mean for the stability of its entire defensive line? Second, the VDV has suffered catastrophic losses since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. At what point does the accumulated destruction of Russia's airborne forces constitute the permanent loss of a strategic military capability that took decades to build? Third, Ukrainian intelligence detected the VDV deployment order and organized a multi-system ambush in under 2 hours. If Ukrainian intelligence continues to improve at its current rate, will Russia ever be able to move reserve forces without Ukraine knowing? And if not, what does that mean for every future Russian attempt to reinforce a threatened sector? Think about that. Subscribe to Steel Command. Share this video. Russia's elite paratroopers were sent to save a collapsing front. Ukraine was waiting on the road. The blue berets that once symbolized Russia's military pride are now scattered in the mud of eastern Ukraine, alongside the burning vehicles, the abandoned weapons, and the bodies of soldiers who deserved better leadership than the command that sent them into a trap.